Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Jadon Sancho and Rafael Varane make future summer transfer decisions. Mason Greenwood receives a Barcelona transfer blow. We're also going to be talking about Brighton's concern around De Zerbi and Manchester United. Antony potentially going on loan. McTominay to West Ham. Also, what's this about Kobbie Mainoo? Yeah, we'll talk about that as well. And the United players last night were on a night out together. Is that news? I think it actually is good news. I think it's good news and I think it's news. And I think it's positivity news going into a massive game, which we're obviously going to be previewing this afternoon live. A live preview. We don't always do a live preview. So 2 o'clock today. Get ready for that. Liverpool, of course. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's a really good thing that the players are out doing that. But look, let's get into all the news first. It is a news show, and it's really interesting stuff coming out. I saw a really funny clip last night. It was like Sancho scored, and it's obviously a Twitter. You know, sometimes I don't even know what the word agenda sometimes can be funny. Agenda, right? Not gender. That's never funny. You'll get the sack. Agenda, something very different. That's when you've got a problem with a player and no matter how well they play, they do well. So Sancho scored last night for Dortmund and somebody tweeted it must have been offside. And then someone replied and went, "Stop it, you hater. It was a shot from distance." And then they replied with, "Well, it must have been meaning to cross it." And I just thought it was funny. I mean, hopefully the person who was saying it was telling a joke, but or it's a very extreme agenda. But look, Sancho did score last night. Sancho did play well for Dortmund last night. This is great. This is absolutely fantastic news. This is really important. If he plays badly, we end up in a Donny van de Beek situation where whether you want him to come back or you want to sell him, you're stuck with him. So I think that with regards to Sancho playing well for Dortmund, great news. Absolutely fantastic news. My thoughts on it, we paid £75 million for a player that didn't just play great for Dortmund, played absolutely world class. So him playing well for Dortmund really doesn't move the needle for me at all. This is what we bought. He's thriving back at Dortmund. Great. Play for Dortmund for the rest of your career. I don't care. I don't want him back at Man United. I think it's you should never go back. He shouldn't come back. The club shouldn't bring him back. It's too risky. It's way too risky. And I always said this about Memphis as well. When Memphis got linked to coming back to us, I said, just don't do it. It's not worth the risk of bringing him back and all, all the shame shit coming out. But Fabrizio Romano last night said that Jadon Sancho would love to stay at Dortmund long term. Could this actually happen? I don't know that Dortmund can put together a financial package that works for Jadon Sancho. So as much as I think he would love to go and play for Dortmund, and look, maybe the Bundesliga suits his game. Like, it makes me laugh when like a player plays well in the Bundesliga and it's meant to be Ten Hag's fault or it's Man United's fault. Kagawa was very good in the Bundesliga. He wasn't very good in the Premier League. So maybe Sancho doesn't suit the Premier League. He's never really played in the Premier League. Although he's English, there was always this assumption that he'd be good in the Premier League. He went to the Bundesliga very, very young. Maybe he is like a Kagawa. Maybe his game just doesn't suit the Premier League. Or maybe it is, he's not settled. Whatever the issue is, we need to find a solution in the summer for Sancho. We need to be moving him on. And if he wants to stay at Dortmund, I don't think that can happen. I really don't think that Sancho and Dortmund can work out a financial package that works. And as much as I would love him to go somewhere that he's happy and enjoy his football because he's a talented footballer, we're also not a charity. We can't just say, yeah, we'll pay you to go and play in Dortmund for the next 3 years. So how that's going to end up, I don't know. But I think the big positive is that he is... He actually had a good game for them last night, and the more good games he has, the more interest there probably will be for him. So look, I think it's a real positive. I just don't really understand at the moment why we've got all these sort of player agenda divides in the fan base. To me, we've got what we've got between now and the end of the season. Certain players are on loan. Even the players that we've got at the moment that aren't playing that well, like the Brunos and the Rashfords, etc., I really hope they start scoring goals because we need to just do what we can. Although I did read a funny story about how Jadon Sancho could be motivated by playing well for Dortmund and stopping Man United qualify for the Champions League. Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch. What they're trying to say is that 5th place in the Premier League could get an extra Champions League spot if we do better than Italian and German clubs in Europe this season. Obviously, Dortmund, Sancho is a German club. So they're saying, well, Sancho could just make Dortmund do really, really well, and then forget it. Absolutely stupid. If Dortmund pull out Arsenal or Man City, they're out. They're out. So that doesn't matter. Anyway, let me talk about something else. So yeah, give us your thoughts on Sancho. I think it's a real positive. I think that there is so much negativity out there around players, but you've got to think it through. Like, if you don't like Sancho and he scores a goal, seriously, it's a positive. Like, if he does well, there's more interest. If he does really bad, he'll be back on the US tour, miserable. So, yeah, very, very good. Jem says P45, Cho. That's quite original, quite good. Anyway, look, also, talking about players who are on loan, who have a value to this football club, Mason Greenwood. There is some big news in the news, this story, by the way. I've seen a few people in the chat. Obviously, I've been on Twitter about it. It's difficult to talk about it because we're part of it. And if you read between the lines, it makes it very difficult to do that. So, yeah, I can't really talk about that in any depth. Suffice to say, it's really funny how on Sunday, all the United aggregators were very happy to put out a fake story. But now the truth's come out, a lot of them don't want to put it out, isn't it? I think you know who the real aggregators are when they put out all the news, not just the bits that suit them. And I'll leave it at that. Anyway, let me move on to Mason Greenwood. So Mason Greenwood, last night we were talking about the interest in Barcelona. John Murta was in Barcelona at the start of the week. Mason Greenwood was the subject of that. The stories last night saying that there's a big chance that Mason Greenwood's going to go to Barcelona were absolutely correct. They are discussing it. However, developments overnight are saying that Barcelona will not be able to fund a deal for Mason Greenwood and that he's more likely to go to Atletico Madrid, who have the funds to do it. Which is a bit of a blow for Mason Greenwood, because I think that if you had the choice between Barcelona and Atletico Madrid, with all due respect, Barcelona is one of the greatest clubs in football. So, yeah, look, for us, great situation. You've got clubs interested in buying Mason Greenwood for around 40 million quid, which, if you'd said that to me 3 years ago, I would have said, you're having a laugh. That's ridiculous money. He's worth way, way, way more than that. But in the climate of he's got 1-2 years left on his deal, I mean, Mosen says 60 million or not sell him. I think we're going to struggle, mate. I think we're going to struggle for a multitude of reasons. Everybody knows that United, if they sell, they need to sell. Everybody knows there is that noise around Greenwood from the UK, which kills off the lucrative Premier League market, which brings the price down as well. And what I mean by that is, it's not that he's, we all know what happened with the court case. We all know the outcome of the court case. He hasn't gone to prison or anything like that. But in the court of public opinion in the UK, no Premier League club's going to buy him. So, and that's a bad thing in relation to transfer value, because put it like this. Imagine if Valverde was leaving Real Madrid, but no Premier League club was going to buy him. Well, he can't go to Barcelona, so it's Bayern Munich or PSG who's going to spend that money on him, or Saudi. And that's the problem. It's just that no Premier League club at the moment is going to buy Mason Greenwood. So it lowers the value, really. We're basically operating in a La Liga market. But it's still positive because you've got Atletico Madrid, you've got Barcelona interested. So yeah, I mean, why can't Barcelona buy him? There was some talk that, the public backlash of buying Mason Greenwood, that's not going to happen really in Spain. If you've seen what's been going on with Getafe, I don't think that would be a problem at Barcelona. I personally think it's money. I think financially Barcelona, as we know, are in trouble and they probably can't afford it. What I was told this morning is don't believe everything that you read. There could be a multitude of reasons for this. Barcelona do tend to get what they want. And if Greenwood's set on going to Barcelona and Barcelona are set on him, they'll find a way of doing a deal, one way or another. And two, the mention of the price could be bartering from Man United. It could be bartering from Barcelona. So I was told this morning, actually, I still, the chances of him going to Barcelona are still very high if Barcelona actually want him. But Atletico Madrid are obviously there. What do I think about 40 million for Mason Greenwood? Well, remember, it's pure profit because he's a young player. I think if you'd said to me last summer, when Richard Arnold sort of messed it all up, would I take £40 million for Mason Greenwood? I'd have said yeah. So that just shows you how well he's done this year. That some people are saying they want more. So I think that it's an interesting deal. A few people talking about swap deals. There was a fantastic bit on Twitter the other day from the Swedish Ramble Twitter account explaining far better than I ever could about why swap deals are really bad for FFP because of new rules and from UEFA that if you swap a homegrown player for a player that's got value, it messes up amortization, etc. And that's on top of what I was talking about the other day about a swap deal. A swap deal is very difficult because if you buy Mason Greenwood, you deal with Mason Greenwood's agent and cash. If you swap Mason Greenwood for a Barcelona player, you've got two agents, you've got two fees, you've got two wages. It becomes very, very confused. But yeah, I mean, look, Barcelona have found ways of doing things in the past. If we can't sell Mason, we will loan him again or keep him, says Matthew. I don't think loan will be on the cards. It'll be keep or sell. There'll be interest in buying him, and if United want to sell him, they'll be interested in buying him. Definitely, there will be interest. Definitely. Ten Hag is very tactically smart. You don't just beat Madrid and Juventus without good tactics. Look at the players that rate Ten Hag: De Jong, Gravenberch, Gakpo, De Ligt, and Frimpong. It's crazy, says Awesome Soccer. If we can't sell Mason, will we loan again or keep? I've done that from Matthew. Stop saying that a lot of people follow your opinion. The lad is innocent. Tony, I think you need to go to the doctors and have your ears cleared out because you're hearing things that aren't being said. Get yourself on Twitter. There's lots of people that like to interact in these lies of negativity and bullshit around this community. We've had more players get lawsuits against them than we have silverware in the last few years, says Tay. Does anyone sack the fraud and free my boy Sancho, says Sancho's burner. These people exist. It's amazing, isn't it? Swap for homegrown from Barca. It's good for FFP, says Connor. And why would Barca... Yeah, okay, we're not going to read that. Why was the Saturday game postponed? Because we're playing on Sunday. Murta doing negotiations in La La Lands, says Yap. Let me just get rid of this twat here in the chat as well. Sorry, we're living in that sort of world at the moment, which I'm sure some of you are aware of on Twitter. But the great thing is we've got the delete button. So that's great. The volume is not low, Giovanni and Scott, and you'll be removed. Stop wasting people's time in the chat with bullshit and turn your volume up. Right, let's just on the manager talk, by the way. Interesting piece in the Times today in relation to De Zerbi and Brighton's increased concern around Manchester United and other football clubs and De Zerbi being their manager next year. So a bit of manager talk because obviously I think the Ten Hag out brigade, led by certain journalists, will be getting very excited from this lunchtime. You know, they'll start bouncing around like a trampoline with a big smile on their face because the odds are, well, Liverpool are favourites on Sunday. So there'll be a big rubbing of their hands of the anti-agenda Manchester United crew because they'll be going, there's a big chance that Liverpool are going to beat Manchester United on Sunday, and therefore that's all of Sunday and the international break to really get in to Ten Hag and why Ineos should sack him. And can you imagine how some of these particular journalists, you can imagine how many articles they've got written on draft for next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So yeah, if you are a Ten Hag outer, I would be feeling pretty positive that the next 2 weeks could be yours. Because if we lose to Liverpool, it's never nice. And obviously, we know that there is a pressure on Ten Hag anyway. So it might be quite an uncomfortable international break for Eric and Man United, and a happier time for other people. Because I think that they will pile on. And look, if we were to lose 6-7-0, yeah, I'd go and live in a cave if I was Eric for the next 2 weeks, because it's going to get bad. But look, it is interesting in relation to that article in the Times and De Zerbi, because regardless of what happens with Eric, this manager just terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me. There are good options out there if United decide to remove Ten Hag, but this guy, for me, is absolutely not. I mean, if Barcelona want to go and do it, great, but I just don't get the De Zerbi hype. I like him at Brighton, and I think it's really interesting what he's doing at Brighton. And I think up until Christmas, I'd have probably said he's got a really big future in the game. But the last 3 or 4 months, I've watched Brighton. I've been really disappointed. Evan Ferguson's not kicked on. Yeah, they've had a few injuries, but some of the beatings they've taken as well, like the Luton one and the Fulham one and the Roma one. I just think it's really, really. I don't get why people put that manager into our mouths. That sounds wrong. But no, I just don't. I don't get it. I don't get it at all as to why people want to put him into Manchester United. And also, he'd be a very dangerous manager to bring to Manchester United, because not only do I think he's a risk, he's also a manager that doesn't get involved in transfers. He basically just gets given players, and that would terrify me. I don't know what Ineos's plan is, and I suspect it won't be this, but there has been a lot of rumour and hints that they want to put in place a management team and then a manager who just coaches below. So a Graham Potter or a De Zerbi, somebody that's got no say on transfers at all, so that the director of football, the CEO and the board can pick the players. I just think that's incredibly stupid, to be honest with you. It doesn't work at any big club in the Premier League. It's not what happens at Liverpool. It's not what happens at Arsenal. It's not what happens at Man City. It's not what happens at Spurs. It shouldn't be happening at Manchester United. But I think De Zerbi would represent that as well. So for me, it's 2 no's. 1, the type of coach he is. He doesn't get involved in transfers at all. And 2, the type of coach he is. I just think he's a bit naive. I think he actually, when you're 2-0 down to Luton, it shouldn't become 4. When you're 2-0 down to Roma, it shouldn't become 4. But there's this, it's almost this stubborn principle of I'm going to play this way, and you don't win trophies like that. Even Pep Guardiola isn't all out tiki taka. He will build a defence. So yeah, I just don't think he's the right man. Greg says Man United against Sheffield United was cancelled because we're playing Liverpool in the FA Cup. Yeah, if people don't realise that, well, it takes all sorts of fans, I suppose. In relation to, some people are very knowledgeable, some people just drift in and out and go, why aren't we playing Sheffield United at the weekend? Bite it, don't fight it. So we've spoken about Sancho. Oh, Varane. Need to talk about bloody Varane. I've gone from Sancho to Greenwood to De Zerbi, and Varane is actually in the bloody transfer, is in the title. So we've spoken about Sancho, we've spoken about Greenwood. Let's talk about Rafael Varane. What is the situation about Varane, Sancho and Varane transfer decision, as it says in the title? Well, Rafael Varane apparently is happy to negotiate with Manchester United a reduced wage and stay playing in Europe, preferably at Manchester United. Now, if Man United don't do a deal, he is looking at other European options for another year, whether that's a Real Madrid, whether that's a Bayern Munich, whether that's a return home to play in France. So apparently, and we've heard this a few times with Varane, he's not actually interested in going and playing in Saudi Arabia this summer. Now, last time I checked, and look, I suppose there is this sort of assumption that Rafael Varane goes and plays in Saudi Arabia and earns absolutely massive money. But when you think about it, he's 30. He's actually younger than Harry Maguire. Now, is Harry Maguire retiring this summer, or is he retiring from England this summer? Or is he wanting to leave Man United this summer? And the answer is probably not to all of those things. Man United might sell Harry Maguire in the summer, but if they do, he's going to go and play for an Everton or a West Ham, or maybe somebody a little bit higher than that. Maybe a Brighton, who knows? And he's probably going to play in the Premier League for the next 2 or 3 years. And he's older than Varane. So I sort of understand why Rafael Varane is saying, I don't want to go to Saudi Arabia yet. You know, I feel I can still play at the highest level. Now, if you go to Saudi Arabia, you can earn a lot of money, but it's not the highest level. You know, it's in the nicest possible sense, it's a growing league with a lot of work to do. Whereas if you're Rafael Varane, I can understand at his age why he's like, well, I don't play for France anymore. I still have the competitive bug. I want to go and play for a team in a competitive league. So that throws the ball back into Manchester United's court because they don't want to pay him the wages he's on and have put it out there that they're willing to negotiate a reduced wage, which Varane is now saying he's willing to negotiate. But I feel Man United have got no intention of negotiating a new wage with Varane. I feel this is very much the same as what happened with De Gea, whereby, you know, De Gea did agree to a reduced wage and then United removed that as well. So I feel that this might just be a PR ploy that has gone wrong, in the sense that they didn't expect Varane would say, I'm going to sign reduced wages. And they didn't expect De Gea to do it either, I don't think. And now those players, now if Varane says, I will take a reduced wage, United are in a position where they're going to have to go, it's not there. I think Varane will be moved on this summer because I don't think age and wage, I don't think it fits with what United are going to try and build under Ineos. So I think Varane will be moved on. But the interesting thing is, I don't think he actually will go to Saudi Arabia. I suppose the question is, would you be keeping Varane for another year if it was 150, 200 grand a week instead of 300 grand a week? And honestly, based on what he's done on the last few weeks, I probably would, because what he's done in the last few weeks has defied what I thought in January, that he can play 2 games a week, because he actually has been, with Johnny Evans, absolutely pivotal to this team over the last few weeks when we've lost Maguire, when we've lost Martinez. Obviously, Lindelof's had to play at left back. So Varane has been ridiculously reliable in big games. I mean, you look at some of the games he's had to play for us over the last few weeks, you know, including the Manchester derby. He's certainly stepped up to the plate and shown that professionalism that, look, I'll put my hands up. There will be a clip of me in January saying, I think we need to cash in. He can't play 2 times a week. I think there was a game where we played Wolves on the Thursday and he played really well. And then he didn't play on the Sunday against West Ham, and Maguire played. And I think Ten Hag said it was to do with rotation reasons. So I was a bit concerned about that. But I think I would keep him. But what I will say, I've done a poll for you. What I will say is that if you keep Varane, you can't keep Varane, Evans, Maguire and Lindelof. I think arguably 2, maybe 3 of them need to go. So if you keep Varane, I would probably move on Lindelof and Maguire because they've got the biggest value, and keep Johnny Evans. But you've certainly got to keep. I mean, look, I'm going to keep Varane out of all 4 of those. He's absolutely the best. I mean, I did a poll. The podcast comes out today, Goldbridge Saves Football, and we've got Lawrence McKenna on, who's a Liverpool fan, and he was bigging it up, saying, you know, there's no Man United player that get in the current Liverpool side. And I said, well, I still think Varane, at his best, is better than any centre-back in Europe, really, with the exception of maybe Van Dijk. I still think Varane is massively underrated. I don't think there's been a massive drop-off in Varane's game. Last season, we only conceded 9 goals at home, and we won the Golden Glove. I think this season look at Van Dijk last year. Liverpool was shit. Everyone was writing Van Dijk off. Liverpool was shit. Was it Van Dijk's fault they were shit? I don't think Varane has lost a lot, really. I still think he's a top centre back in a bad team. So yeah, I would certainly think about keeping Varane, but I don't think we will. I think he's primed to be the next De Gea, where we just sort of force him out the club to save some money. Jem says she'd keep Varane and Evans. Roy said he had Haaland in his pocket all day. Partip says he's really good. New centre-back might need time to settle in, says Hamza. Yeah, I mean, we all know that we're looking to buy centre-backs in the summer, but when you think about it, if you bought Branthwaite and Todibo, but you got rid of Varane, Evans and Maguire, you'd have Martinez, 2 centre-backs and Lindelof. I don't like the balance of that going into a key season. I think there's a lot to be said to keep Varane. I do. And that's the brilliance of football, isn't it? Because if you'd asked me Duran, her name is Rio and he likes it up the... I better not sing that. Anyway, what I was going to say is, if you'd asked me in January, I'd have been looking at Varane's injury record and wages, and I probably would have said, let's move him on. But I think in recent weeks, when we've been, let's be honest as well, there's been nowhere to hide in recent weeks. The players that have played for us in recent weeks have really stepped up to the plate, the ones that have played well. And Varane's been there, definitely. That just reminds me as well, just to throw in something a little bit different on a morning show. I heard or saw something the other day of another ex-United player or somebody describing Mainoo as being like Clarence Seedorf. And we were on about this the other week. Somebody said he's like Paul Pogba. I personally think when Jack Wilshere came through, he was really exciting. He had a low centre of gravity, a tenacity, an ability to dribble, and a good pass. And people forget how good Jack Wilshere was when he came through. He was meant to be the next big thing. I think Kobbie Mainoo, if you want to describe him like any player I've seen at his age, is probably closest to Jack Wilshere. But all this Clarence Seedorf stuff, I mean, this is why we fail. Like, he's Kobbie Mainoo. And if he's going to be a success, in 20 years' time, he will be Kobbie Mainoo. Like, we don't need to compare him to other players. And when people start comparing him to some of the greats of the game, I don't think it helps. Like, he won't get named in the England squad today. I think that's great for Manchester United. Feet on the ground. He's Kobbie Mainoo. He's not the next Seedorf. He's not the next Jack Wilshere. He's not the next Frank Lampard. He's not the next whatever. He's Kobbie Mainoo. And that's what I think we should focus on, instead of saying is this, is that, is the other. Because as we've seen with Garnacho's been around now for 2 years and he's still learning. And I think looking at Garnacho is really important, because it's almost like, Jude Bellingham is... there's a word for Jude Bellingham and it's not right. He is a phenomenon. Like, his growth is massive. But even with Bellingham, who was doing it from 16, to be fair, Dortmund, now Real Madrid. Mainoo next season, my point I'm trying to make is next season, Mainoo is still developing, and the year after that. We just got to be patient with these players. Look, I think the older fans understand it, because we saw it with Giggs, we saw it with Beckham, we saw it with Scholes. We've seen it with these players. It takes time, and we just need to just protect, nurture, and appreciate without overstepping the mark about what they're going to be, because it will take time to get there. Do you prefer as a new centre-back and left-back, says Simulate? Well, I think we're going to buy both. I don't know what we're going to do at left-back, but I think we're going to have to buy both, certainly. A couple of other things I want to talk to you about. There was a story last night about Scott McTominay and how Manchester United would be willing to... they feel that he's replaceable, and they're hoping that teams like West Ham will come back in. Interesting again, it's the same as the Rashford story last night. It's very interesting when you see in the news that United are looking to sell players that you've been told aren't for sale. It is March. Look, I think there's no chance that we're selling Rashford. Absolutely none. I was also told there's no chance of us selling Bruno and McTominay. But the thing about McTominay is that it depends what he wants to do as well. I don't think he'll want to leave Man United, but if he slapped in a transfer request, there would be offers that came in for him. I mean, look, I've got to be really honest on this one. I don't think he's good enough even to be a bench player for Man United if we want to be Man City or Arsenal. I think this season he's made a real contribution off the bench. But I think it's a certain style of play contribution, in the sense that he's sort of lofting balls into the box and he's very good in that area. He's a plan B. He's a plan B, definitely. And in that sense, it's worked quite well. When you think about Brentford, we wouldn't have won if it wasn't for him. That's 3 points on him, and there are others. So I think this season he's had a place. But where we need to go, do Liverpool have a plan B option? Do Arsenal have a plan B? Do Man City have a plan B? The big teams don't really have plan Bs anymore. What they have is, you're not working well in the system I want to play. You're coming off. You go and play the system I want to play. Whereas I think McTominay suits a certain style of play. And long term, I just don't think. I think if I was him, I'd want to play more. And if he wants to play more, I don't think he suits the way we want to play. So, yeah. But I don't think we'll sell him in the summer. I really don't. But if we did, going back to what we were talking about at the start with Mason Greenwood, if we did, it's pure profit. So it would be good on the bank balance. Gold Star, thank you very much for your super chat. If you're going to keep a centre back, you keep the one with the experience on winning titles and teach the young boys to it'd be silly to let him go, says John. I wish we had a club that would come out, define clear milestones, set up a competitive structure before deciding on manager's future, says Tom. Even De Zerbi in his best months at Brighton didn't keep clean sheets. Without defensive problems, some United fans still want him, says Antony. Thank you very much to that. Get your comments in. What was I want to talk about? Spoke about McTominay. Oh, Antony. There is a story coming out. There's quite a lot of stories coming out this morning, actually, which I think's good, because a lot of it's to do with players, and I think there's been too much talk about the manager over the last few weeks, and by now we should be getting a lot more about transfers, especially for a club that's going to be very active. We will be talking to players, we are talking to players, and also we'll be talking to agents of players at the club as well. So we should be starting to get a lot more coming out about transfers. Hence, Ederson, Todibo, Elise are the three I would say at the moment keep a big eye on. Those three, big eye on. Outgoings, obviously we're getting a lot about Greenwood now. I would expect to get a lot more on other players as well. But there is a story coming out that Antony may be loaned to Flamengo next season, which is in Brazil. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if he's part of the team next year, part of the squad. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we did loan him, because it really worked well for Pereira. And obviously he is Brazilian, and he has got a lot going on at the moment. And I think that if United and Ten Hag have basically realised that Antony doesn't have a long-term future at Manchester United, then you've got to go down the Greenwood, Sancho, Donny route of how do we get their value up to sell them. And I think if you send Antony out to Flamengo in Brazil and he does well, then there will be interest in him the following summer. So I'd keep an eye on that one, because I think if we're being completely harsh, unless you're a young player, you don't get loaned out for a future. If you loan out Ahmad or you loan out Dan Gore, there is a way back for you. But I think if you loan out a Sancho or an Antony or a Donny, you're basically putting them out there in the hope that they do well and other clubs get interest in them. So I'd keep an eye on Antony, because I think that potentially they may well be looking at a loan deal in the summer, because we're certainly not going to sell him. Just talking about the players, you may have seen the pictures in the press last night of a team night out, including Erik Ten Hag in Manchester last night. Now, some people jump on this and go, let the lads live. Let them live. You know, why are we getting a story like that? I disagree. I actually think this is not that common. It really isn't that common. Trust me, if Man United players were going out for a meal together every week, we would get pictures every week. I think the last time this happened may well have been last season. So the fact that the players are out for a team night out, I think is a really positive thing. You know, it shows that there is a camaraderie. It shows that there are, you know, somebody in that football club is making an effort to do that. You'd be amazed, well, you wouldn't be amazed at the amount of, I mean, Ben Foster was talking about this on Monday, to be fair, so I'm stealing his own words, but you'd be amazed about how insular certain players are in a dressing room. You'd be amazed at how some players are surrounded by groups that are nothing to do with the club. So they come into training, hello everyone, get their head down, do the training, go. You know, that sort of thing isn't necessarily what we had 20 years ago. And as we know over United over the last 4 or 5 years, there are groups in the dressing room that don't even like each other. So, you know, public team bonding and getting them around a table as players is a real positive. Because the best thing about this is that when they're going for these meals, they're there with the manager and they're there as players. There's no hanger-on, there's no agent, there's no, oh, can I bring my mate? And when they're out in town in Manchester, they're with the mates. They're not necessarily with the players. So I think it's a good thing, especially ahead of a game like that tomorrow. It's a public show of togetherness, and hopefully behind the cameras in the restaurant, they're actually talking, communicating, and building a bit of morale, which is absolutely essential. And we shouldn't take the piss out of it, because we have enough stories about leaks and toxicity and players not getting on, and players not being happy with this, and players wanting this, that, and the other. It's one of the big things of professional sport and success, is to build a togetherness. And if United are working on that, and Ineos are part of that, then that can only be a positive. It's good to see it, says Hamza, exactly. Mark Joy says, do you think it's just for show? Well, it might be for show, but the fact that they are out together, I think it's a positive. I think it's an absolute joke that for the last 10 years, United haven't really had a team morale or togetherness, and at times have been a bunch of individuals. And you see it on the pitch. I look at other clubs like, I look at Liverpool, or I look at Man City, or I look at Arsenal, and I know there's the team hug at the start, but I believe it. I genuinely believe it, because I see it. If you watch football long enough, you don't need to see the team hug. You can see when you watch Liverpool, they're all respectful and in it for each other. Same for Man City, same for Arsenal. I look at United, and I'm not just talking about this season. I'm probably talking about the last 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I look at United on the pitch, and there's a disparity. Some would say, well, you can see that with Bruno throwing his hands in the air. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be together and people don't respect Bruno. But, you see some people giving up. You see some people not tracking back. You can see it on the pitch that they don't play together. They play as individuals. You can see it when we score goals sometimes. It's not really like a whole big pile on like it used to be. I remember 15 years ago, everyone would run and celebrate. So this is something that United are missing. And you can pretend it's not true, but it's something United have been missing for a long time. We don't, on the pitch, look like a team. And you get an aura, don't you? You can tell the body language isn't right. The team isn't together. So we need to work on that, and I think that's a positive. Mark says that Ten Hag's got no clue how to build team spirit, but I think that's unfair. I didn't see it with Ollie. I didn't see it with Ranić. I didn't see it with Mourinho. I didn't see it with Van Gaal. I think we've lost it collectively as a football club, and that's not on the manager. That's on the board. We've created a situation where players have become more powerful than the manager. We created a situation where players were held in higher regard than the manager. We created a situation where the players knew that, where if a player wanted to sell them, they'd be overruled by the Glazers because they had that relationship with them. All that needs to change. So yeah, spoken about that, spoken about Mainoo, Sancho. Any other big news? Well, there is big news. I can't talk about that, as I've said before. Mainoo spoken about Greenwood, spoken about McTominay, spoken about Brighton, spoken about Antony. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to talk about as well. Came out this morning. Manchester United have had a revolving credit facility for quite a while now. In essence, it's around 250 million. And basically, it's a loan. It's a revolving loan that United dip into to buy players or whatever, and we've had it for quite a while, and it's about 250 million quid. So as part of the Glazer sale of 25% to Ineos, it has been released in the last few hours that Manchester United have, as part of a cash injection that was part of the purchase of United 25% by Sir Jim, that credit rolling facility has been reduced by £125 million. So, or 120 or something like that. It's interesting. It is interesting. I think that it's never a negative when some money gets paid off, and it hopefully frees up a little bit of money. Well, it will. It will free up a bit of money in the club, because that money will go into the club, you would presume. Or create a situation where we can spend it. It doesn't impact the overall debt of 780 million quid. We're still in debt for over 3.5 billion. So, yeah, I think the only reason I wanted to bring that up is because some people were thinking, have we reduced the debt by 120 million? And no, we haven't. And it's also, I mean, Taylor says, why not clear the debt first? The thing I think that's sad about it is that Ineos only own 25%, and it's their money clearing credit facilities. The people who own 50% just will not put any of their own money in, will they? And that's the bottom line. You know, fair play, Ineos have paid off 120 million quid, whatever like that. But it still baffles me that the 25% stakeholder is paying off the debt whilst the people who inflicted the debt are there walking out with £1 billion and never put a pound in of their own money. It's such a weird situation. And I do think I do think it needs to stay in the minds of every Man United fan that we're not owned by Ineos. We're owned by the Glazers. The debt is still there. And what are the actual intricacies of this deal with Ineos? Because it's great if Sir Jim wants to start clearing credit facilities and buying players. But how does this even bloody work? How is it that Sir Jim with 25% is putting money into the club, and yet the Glazers have never put a pound in? It's still not right, is it? Hi Mark, got a genuine question for some fans. Why do they think sacking Ten Hag is our best option? Why him before some of these players, says Horn. And do you think Real Madrid will become a problem with Garnacho, says Gold Star? Not this year, no. I think Garnacho and Real Madrid is going to be a problem. I think anybody with a brain knows that. But not this year, not this summer. They will probably start from next summer, Real Madrid. But to be fair, they've got a good couple of wingers at the moment, haven't they, with Rodrigo and Vinicius Jr. So we might get away with it for a couple more years. But Real Madrid and Garnacho will be a problem at some point. You know, I'm not saying he's the next Ronaldo, but you can just sense that, yeah, you can sense that same thing that was there with Ronaldo, where there is this desire to go and play for Real Madrid. I hope I'm wrong on that, but yeah. But I don't think we need to worry about it for another year or two. In relation to why do people want to sack Ten Hag when the problem are the players? Because everybody's different. Some people want to see a new manager and they've made their mind up. That's their choice. I would agree with you, as you know, Horn, that I believe that we can't jeopardise the removal of players by removing another manager first. And I do think that by removing the manager, we won't remove as many players. And that's just logic, because if you keep Ten Hag, he's been here for 18 months and he knows the players that have let him down and he'll look to get rid of them. Whereas if you replace Ten Hag and bring a new manager in, they don't really care what happened under the other manager and they won't know those players have let that manager down and they will just not get rid of them. And we've been in that position 4 times in the last 8 years. So I really, really prioritise the removal of the players that need to go this summer, and would happily keep Ten Hag for another year just to do that. But others don't agree with that. And as I said, we're previewing the Liverpool game live at 2 o'clock today, so make sure you tune in for that. But I really do think that it could be an uncomfortable week next week if we lose to Liverpool, because instead of talking about transfers, the pile-on the manager will be the thing that features. And I guarantee you that the drafts of certain journalists are full with ping, ping, ping articles about new managers, which some of you will enjoy, let's be honest. Would you keep Varane? 81% of you say yes. 19% of you are saying no. So that's a pretty strong vindication around Varane, who, to be fair, I don't think his injuries have been particularly bad this season. I shouldn't have said that. Gaz says, could you explain this for me? Could Ineos theoretically just pay off the debt on the club, or does it have to be done in a certain way due to FFP? It's a good question. I don't know the answer, other than to say, why would a 25% stakeholder clear £750,000 of debt? It wouldn't make much sense to me at all. Ben says, if Mason plays well, do you think that his football can overtake the public opinion and get interest from Premier League clubs, or to a point where we don't sell him as he is too talented? Not in 3 months. I think he might play in the Premier League again, but I don't think he'll play. I don't think there's anything he can do in the next 3 months that will make a Premier League club buy him in the summer. No. I think in 3 years, I think he's going to have to go and play for Atletico Madrid or Barcelona for 2 or 3 years, and then that will be enough time for him to have interest from another Premier League club. But there won't be a Premier League club that looks to buy him this summer. No. Good questions, though. Michael says he was timed out for saying Garnacho is pure profits. That sounds like an injustice, Michael. I don't take it up with the moderators. Wendell from Porto as a left back says Raz, and Eric Ten Hag game management needs to improve. Well, that will improve, Chris, with the players that he's got available, I think. Niall says, so Sancho playing well for Dortmund means nothing, but Ten Hag doing well at Ajax means everything. So can I rephrase that, Niall? 2 things. First of all, Sancho playing well in 90 minutes against PSV compared to years at Ajax for Ten Hag. What are you doing to yourself? And secondly, what is it even relevant? Like, we're trying to sell the lad. What are you saying? Bring him back. I don't know what you said. I actually don't know what you're talking about, Niall. Nearly got your name wrong. Ashworth updates is Taylor. Nothing. They're still trying to get that deal done. How many weeks is this Ashworth deal taking, by the way? I mean, it's a great point. We shouldn't forget about it. How many weeks is this actually taking? Anyway, look, we are back live at 2 o'clock for the Liverpool preview. I can't wait for it. Make sure you tune in for that. Smash a like on the video and subscribe. Thank you for all your support, both on here and on social media over the last few days. I know it means a lot, especially to some of the others. So, it means a lot to me, but I'm just used to the pile-on. But everybody else, I know it means an absolute fortune. So thank you very much for all of that. Take care. Smash a like. I'll speak to you in a bit.